What is up, guys? We are here in El Monte, California, and we've got a cool bike for you to check out. Take a look at it here. This is the MOTAN M-66 R7, made by AddMotor. That's been making and selling e-bikes since about 2011, and before that they were operating with motorcycle components and accessories since around I think around 2006 or so. So with e-bikes, they used to sell just online, direct to consumer, so you'd get it shipped to you and you'd have to do quite a bit of assembly before you could, ride the bike. But now they actually have something of a hybrid model. They have some dealers, including around here in the LA area, so you can get a bike from a dealer and get some support that way too. That's awesome, especially if you want to test ride the bike first. Make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you or not. You get a 1-year comprehensive warranty with all their bikes as well, which is awesome. Now, this bike right here, the M66 R7, I'm just going to call it the R7 for short, I think. You only get the one frame size here, about an 18-inch frame. It's a little bit harder to say with this since it doesn't have a standard seat tube, as you can see. This is a cool vintage style. It looks like a compact bike, but that's a little bit misleading. It's actually pretty long. I measured it at 71 inches. It's a heavy bike. I do want to say that right off the bat. You've got some extra weight since you have that bigger banana seat, and then you can see on the wheels here, these are solid, or like a cast alloy wheels. So instead of having spokes, they have those cast alloy arms. That is great for stability and strength, of course, but a lot heavier than a standard wheel that has spokes on it. This bike is a little bit north of being value priced. $17.99 is the price on it here. And it's got quite a few features that come along with it. We've got the integrated headlight from Spinninga up here. There is a taillight back here, but it's powered by 3 AA batteries. It is not an integrated light, so you do have to turn that on with this little button right under here, and you can, of course, take that off, which you would have to if you need to swap out the battery. So just remember to turn that on when you're riding, and of course, remember to turn it off. That's always the hard part, is remembering to turn it off and not killing your battery. But the headlight up on the front, this one is integrated directly into the battery. This is the Spinninga Trendo. These are nice bright lights. They have a great mirror array in there, so they do a good job of lighting up the road ahead of you. I appreciate that. And there is also a rear rack that you can get with the bike, and it sticks out to about right here. I'll overlay a picture of it so you guys can see that. Gives you a little bit extra space to carry something on the back, of course. And this bike can carry a lot. Its weight limit that they recommend is 330 pounds total for, rider or multiple riders if you wanted to do that. So look at this. This is something that they did not have on this model when we reviewed it before, is these pegs on the back. So you can pop these pegs down. That way if you're riding with a passenger on the back there, they have some place to put their feet. Then they can pop up and be out of the way. That is awesome. I like that a lot for transporting a smaller passenger behind you. And this banana seat here, it's nice and comfy, and it's, as you can see, it's pretty long too, about 23.5 inches when I measured it. This is nice so you can slide forward if you do have that passenger on the back, but if you're riding by yourself, and if you're a taller rider like me, then you can slide back, sit back here a bit. You can get a little bit more extension on those pedals. Those are full-length pedals there, 170 millimeter. But even sitting all the way back on the seat there, it's a little bit difficult to pedal if you're tall like me. So just keep that in mind. I'm 6'3", and so I can pedal it, but I just still can't get full leg extension, and it's just it feels a little bit awkward and clunky for pedaling, just since I have really long legs. This is not a bike that you would want to get stranded without any battery on. Now, fortunately, you've got a pretty high capacity battery here. We're looking at 48 volts, 11.6 amp hour. That gets you about I think it's 556 watt hours of capacity. So that is pretty solid. You should be able to go a long ways with this. They've estimated about 25 to 30 miles if you're using a lot of throttle, heavy pedal assist, and more up on the 50 to 60 mile range if you're doing just low pedal assist level. So just make sure you keep an eye on that so you don't get stranded and having to pedal this heavy bike all by yourself, of course. These wheels, these are new. The previous versions of this bike use the standard spokes instead of having these cast arms. I like these cast arms a lot. They add the strength and stability, of course, and then they have the silver reflectors on the sides right here. So we don't have them on the tires, of course, no reflective striping, but we don't need it because the rims have it all over the place, and then we got reflectors right there. Nice, good side visibility there, of course. Very important for safety. The motor here, this is just a rear wheel integrated motor here from Bafang. A bit more powerful too. We're looking at 750 watts back here. I'm not sure what the exact measurement on torque is yet. I didn't get that from them yet. That will be in the full written review and specs back at ElectricBikeReview.com, but 750 watts, and I'm estimating around 80 Newton meters of torque just based on my experience riding it. It is powerful. It is a lot of fun to ride. It's because of the power of the motor and just the weight of the bike and the seating style, it's way more fun to ride this a little bit more like a moped, or using that high levels of pedal assist. Super fun to cruise around on. Not as great for the pedaling, of course. It's really adjustable for different sizes of riders, which I appreciate. We mentioned the banana seat, where you can slide back and forth on that. And then we've got the Pro Max stem up here, which they've had this on their previous models. Move around here so you can see. These are tool-free adjustable stems. I like these a lot. You slide this down here and lift up, and then you can move this all over the place. So you can set it down lower if you want, or move that back up here. I had mine set up a little bit high, almost like a sort of a choppery feel to it, so that when I'm sitting here, I have this nice set it upright and high up handlebar position. I like that. I think it feels cool. You can tweak that however you want to, but this is a big plus for me. Big win right there. Tweak that to... It's nice too, since we mentioned you can carry the additional passenger on the back, and so if you're sitting further up on the seat to accommodate a passenger, then you might want to move those handlebars a little bit more forward so that you can still sit comfortably. So that helps out a lot. While we're talking about it, let's just keep talking about ride comfort here. We've got a Addshox suspension fork up here, 80 millimeters of travel on this, and it is adjustable for your compression and preload. You need a tool for some of that, unfortunately. But 80 millimeters of travel does a lot to soften up the ride, and as you can see, we've got fat tires here, so those help a lot with the cushion as well. And something I like about this suspension fork here is the triple clamp design. You can see that here. This is called the triple clamp right here. I like that. It's cool. It has sort of like a BMX or a motorcycle look to it, and gives you a little bit more stability as well. It's a nice sturdy fork there. Those are 32.5 millimeter stanchions as well, a little bit bigger than some of the other ones that we've been looking at lately. And so when you put in the suspension fork, you have the nice comfy banana seat, and then these tires right here, these are the Kenda Krusade Sport. These can go from as low as 5 PSI all the way up to 30. So if you drop that down closer to the 5 range, you get a lot more comfort. You can also tackle some really rough terrain like sand and snow and that kind of stuff easily. You don't get as good of efficiency there, so your range is going to go down, but you get a lot more comfort and a lot more versatility for the types of terrain that you can go on. These tires don't come with puncture protection. That's a bit of a downside for them. If you're in an area that has lots of thorns and stuff like that, you know, where I live in Colorado, they're pretty much a must. You have some kind of puncture protection. So keep that in mind. If you live somewhere like that, just get yourself some inserts or some slime sealant or something like that. And I did mention there was no reflective striping on there, but I don't think that's a problem here, since we got plenty of reflectors on there, and the bike's very visible, of course, in the white frame color. If you don't like the white, they have another option for black. So you've got those two choices for your color options there. And while we're over here, let's look at the drivetrain, the human-powered side of things. We've got a Shimano Altus derailleur back here. Shimano Altus is a pretty good derailleur here. That's a step up from their entry level, you know, Tourney and then Altus after that. So that's a step up in quality that I appreciate. 7 speeds back here. The range is a little bit low. We're looking at 14 to 28 teeth on that cassette in the back here. So that's not a whole lot of range. You know, this isn't something that you can tackle huge hills with or go ridiculously fast just by pedaling, but I think that's okay for the kind of use that they're going for. You know, this isn't a mountain bike here, so I think that gets the job done. And the front up here, we got a 42 tooth steel chain ring here, and it used to have a plastic guard here previous years. They've upgraded this to an alloy chain guard here. I like the cutouts right here, the detailing. I think that looks really cool, and it gives it a little bit of a reflective nature, a little bit more visibility from the side. And the guard is important. You know, it's not just a or excuse me, I should say the guide. It's two-sided here, and so it protects the chain from, you know, stuff falling into it, your pant legs or something like that. It also keeps the chain from bouncing off. You go over bumps and stuff like that, the chain's not going to be able to jump off nearly as easily. That is crucial on a bike like this, because as you can see, we've got a really long chain here. And so if you didn't have that guide right there, it'd be pretty easy for it to bounce off. So thanks to AddMotor for doing that. We mentioned these are standard length 170 millimeter crank arms. They're made by Ounce, aluminum alloy on those and on the pedals. These are Well-Go platform pedals, got the reflectors and pins on here for traction, of course. Let's take a step back here. We talk about the cabling and stuff. They did a really nice job with managing their cabling. We're looking at internally routed. You can see right here, I think they got the controller hiding right under here. I believe that's a 25 amp controller. And then that running back to the motor here. They've got the derailleur guard on the back that protects not just the derailleur, but also the motor connection point, so that if the bike does go over on that side, or even if you just bump into something while you're riding it, helps to keep both of those components safe. I love seeing that. And while we're talking about the cables, they have these, they're these plastic cable wraps here that have this, it almost looks like a phone cord, old school phone cord is what it reminds me of. I think it looks nice, and it does a great job of managing the cables. Keeps everything nice and safe and clean looking, and they provided enough cable right here so that you can adjust that handlebar and that stem pretty much any way you want, forward, backwards, etc., without running out of cable. So I appreciate that they gave us enough there for that. And some other integrated components we get here, there are the fenders. We get fenders on the front and rear. These are aluminum alloy fenders, so they don't rattle as much as plastic might, and they also will not scratch, ding up, and rust in the same way that steel does. I like aluminum alloy for fenders. That's probably my favorite. You know, everyone has their pros and cons. So I like these ones. The rear one, I think, leaves something to be desired. Well, really both of them. They're not very long fenders. So the rear one back here, as you can see, only extends out to about right here. So if you get going fast and you're going through some water or mud, there's still an angle for the rear tire to fling those up and hit you in the back. So I would like to see this coming out to, at least right about there. There's some aftermarket extenders you can do on there, or you can just be careful and don't ride too fast through wet conditions. Keep that in mind. And the front one as well, they do a good job of protecting, like the fork and the electronics here and stuff like that. But the front one as well, it doesn't go back a whole long ways, so be careful when you are turning, because that can potentially fling mud and water up and hit you. Just something to be aware of there. And this is something that's new that we haven't seen on the previous year's models, is this plastic footrest right on the center here. This is a nice step through, very approachable here. I think it was only around 18 or 19 inches for this step through height right there. So I think that's pretty great. And this is nice to, if you're riding it in moped mode, just using the throttle, you can put your feet on there and just kind of cruise along. If the pedals are getting a bit uncomfortable or anything like that for you. Doesn't work very well for me because I'm really tall. I feel like I'm really starting to tuck in and hunch if I put my feet on it. But if you're a more average size or a shorter rider, then that will work great for you. And taking a look at our brakes while we're down here, these are mechanical disc brakes. These are the Tektro Aries mechanical disc brakes, 180 millimeter rotors and dual piston calipers here. Now, mechanical brakes have some downsides compared to hydraulic. They require a bit more maintenance, tightening really. The cables can start to loosen up over time and stretch, so you got to take care of that. They can also be harder to actuate on some bikes, but they're not bad on this one. Part of that is because we've got these nice big 3-finger levers up here from Tektro. That makes them a little bit easier to actuate. And then also the wheels here, these are 20-inch wheels. They're a little bit smaller, so we get a little bit more of a mechanical advantage there. So I didn't have any trouble with stopping power on these. I think the mechanical brakes work just fine here. And continuing on with the other stuff in the cockpit here, the left brake does have an integrated bell right here. You can hit that, and the grips on these are ergonomic. They're this stitched leather. They feel really nice and comfy. They are not locking, but you really have to put some effort into it to get them to turn at all. So I don't think you'll have any problem with them not being locking, especially since this is not a mountain bike. You're not going to be bearing down with them on them very heavily. When I've been riding it around, especially with my handlebars up higher, I have a pretty relaxed grip on there, so I don't think you're really at any risk of those turning around on there. You've got the shifter up here for that Shimano Altus. This is a thumb shifter, so you can press up here to go down, press that button in there this one will shift you down, yep, and then press this to shift up. And you can dump a whole lot at once on here if you want to. So that's nice. It gets the job done. I think that the Shimano Altus has solid performance out of it. And all right, so let's jump into the control system here. So we've got the throttle right over here on the right side, twist throttle right there. And this button on it, this is basically a throttle kill switch. So we're gonna go ahead and fire up the bike real quick. That is this lower M button right here. So you have throttle live right off the bat. But then if you, actually I think I might have turned it off, so let me push this button here. Yep, so throttle is live. So if you press this little button right here, that disables the throttle. So you can twist that and nothing from the rear wheel. You can still use pedal assist. That is awesome. That's just a nice safety feature. So you can disable the throttle. That way if you're walking the bike, maneuvering it in your garage or something like that, you don't have to worry about accidentally twisting on that and having the bike take off on you. And then you still get that pedal assist. And it's nice too when you're riding only in pedal assist and holding on up here and don't want to have to worry about accidentally hitting the throttle. So I like that. Something else that I appreciate on this bike is that you get full throttle from all the pedal assist levels. There's some bikes where if you're in a low level pedal assist 1, then you just get a little bit on the throttle. I prefer to have the full throttle all the way. That way you can be cruising in a low level of pedal assist. Then if you need to accelerate for some reason, you can just hit the throttle and go. Don't have to worry about changing your assist level. I appreciate that. Moving over to the display and the rest of the controls here. This is, it's about a 3 or so inch LCD screen, monochrome LCD screen. You got your battery readout in the top. Only 5 bars, not very precise. You know, those are 20% steps. It gets the job done certainly, but that can make it a little bit tricky to know exactly how much range you have left. Once you start getting down lower, I prefer to see a percentage, but you know, that it gets the job done. We've got the odometer readout right here, current speed, our pedal assist level. This goes from 1 through 5, and then the motor wattage output right here. You can hold down the up arrow on this control pad here, and that'll switch that over to average speed. You can hold it again and see our max speed, hold it again and go back to our current speed. And then with the down arrow, if you hold that down, that will do walk mode. Pretty standard feature on e-bikes these days. Really nice if you're walking the bike with a friend or something like that. Now, there is a USB charging port on the bottom right here. USB Type A charging port. I haven't plugged my phone into it yet. I will do that later on and then put an overlay here to let you guys know if this is a 0.5 amp or a full amp on it. That's important for if you're trying to charge an Android phone or an iPhone. Let's see if I can get this back in here. There we go. I like having the charging port there a lot. You can get like a phone mount or something like that for the handlebars. Plug your phone in while you're riding. I think that's great. You can also get into settings for this if you hold down the, I think it's the up and down arrows at the same time. Yep, so then there's all kinds of settings in here that you can change. You know, the wheel size, I think that's the max speed, and I don't know what a lot of these do. You would want to talk to AddMotor before diving into these and getting yourself into trouble changing things if you're not sure what they are. Now, this bike ships as a class 2, so you get pedal assist or on-demand throttle up to 20 miles per hour. Now that motor in the back, 750 watts, is powerful enough to go a lot faster than that, so you can change those settings, bump it up to 28 miles per hour or so. That'd be up in class 3 speed pedelec range. So just be aware of the regulations where you live before making any changes like that. Let's move around here so we can take a look at this battery. They use Panasonic cells on their battery. Those are good quality, and we're gonna unlock it here. You don't need the key in to ride the bike. I just had it in there so that I wouldn't lose it. Can slide, oh, actually I think I might have already had it unlocked. Let's go ahead and unlock that. There we go. Slides right out there. 7 pounds on the dot for this battery. Pretty standard. And let's see, we have got this LED readout. It might be a little, you might be able to see it in the light here. Basically, you can press that button to see your battery level while it's off the bike, and you've got a on-off switch right here as well, so you can turn that off if you're not using it for a while. And there is the charge port. Got it on a leash there so it won't get lost, and easy to charge the battery while it's off the bike, of course. And it's pretty easy to put on and remove. As you can see, I'm able to do that pretty comfortably with one hand. Put that back in here. And so, of course, if you are charging that when it's on the bike, then the charging port will just be right over here on the left side. I appreciate that it's up here at the top. That means that you won't have any risk of hitting the charge port with the crank arms if you have it plugged in and the bike gets moved a little bit or bumped or something like that while it's charging. And speaking of having stuff away from the crank arms, the kickstand back here is rear mounted, so you won't get pedal lock or anything if you're moving the bike backwards while you've got the kickstand down. Appreciate that, especially for, I keep coming back to this, it's a heavy bike. If you're maneuvering it at a bike rack, it can be annoying to have to put the kickstand up or lift it up, since pretty hefty, especially on the rear, since we have that rear wheel integrated motor back there. All right, guys, well, let's jump on and go for a spin. Do some more talking while we're cruising around. Turn down a little bit. Fire this up. I'm gonna bump it all the way up to highest level of pedal assist, and we're just gonna do some throttling around first so you can get an idea for how powerful it is. Now this is a variable speed throttle, so you can turn on it a little bit, just get a little throttle, or really crank it and go. I really like the power that this bike has. It feels awesome. It feels like a moped. Really fun to cruise around. Pretty quick to get up there and hit that max speed of 20 miles per hour as well. It feels really stable too, which I appreciate. You get some of that from having those big tires, of course, and then also it's a really short bike. You're very low to the ground, low center of gravity. You've got that wheel integrated motor, and the battery is reasonably low, and so that helps a lot for it feeling stable and like you can corner really well. I'm gonna put the camera back down there by the motor just so you can give that a listen and see how loud that sounds for you. It's not bad, actually. It's enclosed pretty well, so I think that helps out. But all right, here we go. We're going full throttle all the way up to the top speed of 20. So nice and quiet. I'm impressed, honestly, with how quiet it is. I was expecting quite a bit more from how powerful the motor is, but yeah, they did a good job. Good job keeping the volume down on that. All right, let's see. Where am I going here? Actually, I think I'm gonna turn around here. Now, I don't think I mentioned this when we were walking through the bike, but these brakes do have motor inhibitors on them. That is pretty much a necessity on a big bike like this that is using a cadence sensor for pedal assist. So with a cadence sensor, that can take a little bit of time to kick in when you start pedaling, but then when you stop pedaling, that can also take a little bit of time, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, for the motor to get the message and to stop giving you assistance. So that's important on a bike like this, to be able to squeeze the brakes and have that cutoff power to the motor immediately. Okay, let's see here. We're gonna take a look at the pedal assist side of things, just so you get an idea for that cadence sensor in action. All right, so I got shifted down to gear 3, so you can see that delay from the cadence sensor. And this one, I mentioned this already, but this is a kind of a difficult bike to, there we go, kicked in. A little bit difficult to start pedaling on. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. So you can see I'm getting a revolution or two on those cranks before the cadence sensor kicks in. That's a pretty standard delay from having a cadence sensor. Of course, on this bike, we have got that twist throttle. So especially on this bike, with it being a little bit harder to start off pedaling, really nice to be able to just hit the throttle to get going, start pedaling, and then you can let off the throttle once the pedal assist catches up with you. So I appreciate having the throttle for sure. And honestly, a bike like this, it feels like I want to just cruise around on the throttle. It feels like a moped. Got that awesome power from the 750 watt motor in the back. Surprisingly quiet. I can hear my tires on the pavement more than I can hear the motor. That is pretty great. I'm sitting pretty far back here, Like I'm about as far back on the seat as I can get, and as you can see here, I can't get up to a full extension on the pedals. I can certainly pedal, but without pedal assist, that would be pretty rough. If you get yourself stranded a long ways away from home, that could be a exhausting ride getting back home. Oh, unfortunately, I don't have a passenger to try out, you know, having someone sit behind me. I'll scoot up here though. So I think to, you know, have a passenger behind me, I'd have to be sitting about this far forward. So you know, I'm pretty cramped up here. I'm a little bit too tall to be doing this, I think. I would probably also, you know, adjust that stem forward even further. But, you know, honestly, if I was riding with a passenger, I would not be riding pedaling. Let's just put it that way. I would definitely just be using that throttle to get us around. And I think that's really what it's designed for. And then if you're riding it by yourself, you can push back there a little bit. Tackle some bumps here. Woohoo! Yeah. Alright, we're gonna lower that. We'll go to 3. I just wanted to show you guys that derailleur in action before we go too much further here. Oh yeah, nice and smooth. You know, it's Shimano Altus. That's a great thing about Shimano being such a standard name, is if you've ridden Shimano Altus on one bike, then it's going to be a pretty similar experience on any of the other ones. Let's get turned around here. Okay guys, we're just about done here. I realized I forgot to point this out when we were doing the walk around earlier. I mentioned we're doing cadence-based pedal assist, but we're using an unsealed sensor. You can actually see it right here behind the chainring. That is an unsealed 12 magnet cadence sensor. So 12 magnets is good. That's nice and high resolution, but it's not sealed. So this helps to protect it a little bit, but it can still get bumped and bent. And more importantly, those magnets could potentially get knocked out of there. This is why it's a lot better to see a sealed sensor. It protects it, keeps it a bit safer from stuff like that. For the type of riding you'd be doing on this bike, it may not be as big of a deal, you know, if you're not getting too crazy off-roading or doing, you know, mountain bike riding, for example. But just be aware, keep an eye on that sensor, make sure that it doesn't get bent, make sure you don't lose any magnets, and then you'll be okay. Okay guys, I think that's a wrap here for the M66 R7 from AddMotor. I had a blast with this bike. It's a lot of fun to ride. It feels like a moped, really, more than anything else. And still does all right pedaling, of course, but with the increased weight and the seating position for the taller riders, you might be a lot more inclined to just ride it like a moped. Really a lot of fun. The suspension up front and having the fat tires makes it nice and comfy. Okay guys, so if you got any questions or comments, thoughts about this bike, chime in the comments section, of course. We've also got the AddMotor forums back on ElectricBikeReview.com, and of course there we've also got our full written review, specs, measurements, weights, etc., and the write-up with pros and cons, so check that out. All right guys, take care, and we'll see you next time.